A Greg's home.
Oh, Greg?
There's your door sound, Ben.
Yeah, that is the door sound. That is the creaking door.
That is the door, yeah.
Hello and welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we're going to be talking about episode 3 of House of the Dragon, The Burning Mill, as it's titled. Today I'm joined by Bing.
Hello. I was Shoeshiner once upon a time.
Adam.
This is also known as drownedsnow.
Kingjucio.
Hey, kingjucio, Ben.
Michal.
Hello. Just Michal.
And Katie.
Hi, this is Katie. I used to be ladygiffin on the forums.
Yeah, every time I see your name now, I'm like, how do you pronounce it? Saharon, right?
Yeah, Saharan.
Okay.
Sounds like a dragon.
I mean, it is a Dragon Age thing, but...
This is DragonCast.
This is
That's
DragonCast.
Not like
Yes.
those Blackfires.
Yeah. What's going on with that? Why we're first of all, they could have been the Greens, but no, they're skipping to season 45 of House of the Dragon here.
I know, they're not even on brand.
All right, so let's start. My name's Casey, and I am Blue Eyed Queen on the forums. So let's start with some lemon cakes. This episode was an interesting one. Lots of stuff going on. So I'll go in the same order. Bing, how about you start us off?
All right. I'm gonna give it a 3.5, somewhere between 3.5 and 4. There's a lot of sneaking around castles. To maybe a bit too much sneaking around castles. And I think I've been saying this in the last episode too. There's a lot of these Scooby-Doo hijinks. I didn't know they could. The first episode, okay, yeah. Second episode, okay, the twin thing, that was a thing in the book, sure. They just made up something to just have more people sneaking around castles in this episode. I don't know. I'll probably have to leave a bit earlier, so I won't probably get the full glory of the commentary on the last scene. I just found the last scene absurd and kind of funny, which I was sort of entertained by. I also don't know if it actually completely made sense. So that's why I'm sort of stuck between 3.5 and 4.
All right. Adam, how you feeling?
Generally pretty well, Casey. Sorry. I'm feeling much better. I will say that this episode was definitely down from kind of the usual standard to me, and a lot of it was that scene, and not just that. Like, I don't necessarily think that the meetup was bad, like it was poorly written, or like I like seeing those actors together, all that. It's just like it felt something that was not driven by the narrative, that was more driven behind the scenes. Like, they wanted to get them together. They felt they had to do this. Like, they couldn't find a better way to twist the motivations of these characters in the way they wanted without them just meeting up like this. And it's kind of disappointing. But there was a lot of cool stuff in this episode, so I'll give it like a 3, like a begrudging 3. I don't want to go lower than that, but I mean, we got Moon Dancer, and the Harrenhal stuff was hilarious. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Kingjucio, how are you thinking about this?
I am teetering between a 2.5 and a 2. I really, really, really hated the end of this episode. Everything else was pretty okay, though. I love Sir Simon Strong. He's the best. He's the funniest. Lavrenti Beria can run a household better than anyone, and he will, in fact, run a household better than anyone. So,
got it. Michal.
I'm this season generally kind of hard to rate, just because I feel like the episodes are just too long as far as like being sort of comprehensive episodes. Like I like most of what's happening. It just, for some reason, this one felt to me, and I've heard a lot of people who really like it, and I respect, their opinion generally, but this just felt like, I don't know, I stopped to like use the bathroom at one point, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like barely even halfway through. Probably 3 to 3.5. You know, the show always peaks at points. There are scenes that are 5s, you know. Yeah, I think that's where I'll leave it for now.
All right, and Katie.
I will give it 4 out of 5 Wimples in honor of Rhaenyra's Septa cosplay. It was a chunky episode, very meaty, a lot of really good character work. My complaint mostly comes from a fatigue with the Cold War politics of, are we at war? Are we not at war? Should we use dragons? Should we not use dragons? Rhaenyra's role in the series, or rather this season, is mostly calling council meetings and then leaving immediately. Which I understand what they're doing. It seems like they're building to her making a major decision at the end of the season. And obviously we're going to have an explosion in the next episode, so it makes sense that this episode was a bit more of a lull and moving pieces around. I didn't think it was bad or even boring. Like I said, I was entertained the whole time. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't like, it's never going to be anyone's favorite episode, but it was a solid episode. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 as well. I wasn't mad about it, but I was, it just didn't flow the way that episodes have flowed in previous episodes. I don't know. There was a lot going on with a lot of different things, and it was kind of minor, and I did feel a little bit of that Scooby-Doo-ness of Daemon sneaking around Harrenhal and Rhaenyra going through King's Landing. Like, it all kind of feels like a little silly, but looking back to season 1 with Daemon and Rhaenyra sneaking around, I think it doesn't not add up to me in too much of a way that like takes me out of it. But it does seem, I feel like sometimes with popular shows, when they do season 2s, they tend to fall back on something being a little bit more comical, or try to like play to the fans in some ways, and I think that they're doing that a little bit this season, and I don't love that. I think that they should just stay where they've been with what they've been doing. But overall, I was entertained the whole time. I generally love the show. Just like, I love the acting, I love the scenery, I love everything about it, and I can't not like give it a higher rating, honestly. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. So we open up with the Brackens in the Blackwoods, and we see, I believe it's Bloody Ben, if the internet is telling me that correctly. And they get into a little bit of a scuffle, and then all of a sudden it appears that some shit went down, and everybody's dead, except for maybe a few people. So I was a little bit, I think my only pet peeve with this was like, it's one of the battles, we could have seen one of the battles, like, it's just, I think it's just really to show that they did that cut just to show how much, like, things can go from, like, something, like, nothing to everything in a hot second. How are you guys feeling?
It was budget.
Yeah, dragons are hella expensive.
Budget.
Sorry, I have
point of order. Point of order. Not in fact Bloody Ben, because that was someone named Davos Blackwood apparently. Although he looks like the book art for Bloody Ben.
Oh, really?
I feel like some of that might just be like, maybe we'll bring him back and he will be Bloody Ben, and maybe we won't, but we don't want to like make that commitment for a guy who has 2 lines in a 30-second scene. I wouldn't. He does look. He was great. I could imagine him as Bloody Ben. I wouldn't totally write that off yet, but
the internet dies again.
I applaud the transition. I thought it was economical and also gruesome, cutting between like the scared kid and then you see him dead with a sword in his throat. I thought that was good. And I think it makes a nice parallel to Rhaenyra and Alicent's scene at the very end, even if you disagree with the circumstances of their meeting. It's the parallel of people not being able to back down due to pride, even when the fallout is going to be catastrophic. Like if I had to end a I guess the theme for the episode, it would just be like people's pride not allowing them to make common sense decisions to save themselves.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said kind of almost on a meta level for how like sudden the cut was and how devastating the battle that we didn't see was. Because to me it kind of felt like that's how this really happens, you know? It's like kind of what Rainey's is saying. Like we're so close to like this all, it feels slow at the moment and it feels like we're all kind of holding our breath, but probably a couple episodes / days for the characters, we're going to be like, you know, we're going to be like, how did this happen? This was the blink of an eye, even though, you know, we might be able to trace it all the way back to a kid losing his eye when he was, you know, 8 years old or whatever.
I think that we might have seen the episode, but ultimately the general audiences care about these people, bunch of no-name characters fighting each other. It serves its purpose as sort of some sort of allegory of and also serve as some sort of the initial flames of war. I don't really feel like we need to see the actual battle. I think the scene they shot was enough.
Well, I'm just going to say, to be fair to them, it seems like they did put in a fair amount of time to shoot the scene. They had to shoot, you know, the confrontation. And then, like, I think they said they came back over a course of days and were shooting, you know, the bodies and stuff. And then it just, like, happened to be, it was pouring rain and there was mist and it made it look like, I don't know, the contrast between, like, the meeting and the dead bodies is really good.
Yeah, and I mean, if you had to ask me, like, which battle do you really hope they go all in on House of the Dragon, it's not going to be the Battle of the Burning Mill. So
I just live to see Brackens die, so, you know, I'm happy.
that's another thing. Okay, I just want to, you know, make this point again that, like, we have, in George's world of no black and white, everybody is shades of gray. If your last name is Bracken, you are bad. And if your last name is Blackwood, you're good. The end. It's so funny. There are no exceptions.
This is in fact true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, George.
I mean, what was the guy? What was it? The one that Jamie met? Oh man.
No, that kid's a Blackwood. The guy he talks to is he's mostly dealing with is the Bracken, who's a dick.
He's a dick, but he's not that bad. And also, what is his name? Tydos became like the fandom's like Kawaii Desu Squee character for a while in that time, because he had a sick raven feather cloak, and that's it.
All right, so let's move on to next. We see Rhaenyra burying Eric and Eric, and there's some discussion with Rhaenys and Rhaenyra, and Rhaenys kind of telling Rhaenyra to get a little bit of a backbone and get a move on with making some decisions. And I feel like I was kind of feeling this the whole episode throughout Rhaenyra's scenes with the council, and yeah. How are you guys feeling about that in general?
I thought they were going to say that we have to bury them together because we can't tell them apart. We can't tell which one was our guy.
Oh my god. No, it was... They could tell because the bodies had fallen. Eric was the one that was standing still. Come on. Come on.
There's a really funny alternate dub of that scene.
I like that Jace...
I do love how Rhaenyra was like, hey, he followed his honor too. Like, he stood true to his vow. Like, she kind of gave both of them props, so.
He tried to murder her. I feel like this goes to a larger issue I've had with this whole episode. It's like, Rhaenyra's rage has been effectively snuffed out, and I'm partially okay with that because of the whole Jaehaerys thing, and I get why, right? But at the same time, like...
You mean
they
Lucerys?
just tried... No, Jaehaerys. Like, the murder of Jaehaerys snuffs out her rage. And so it's
Gotcha.
kind of cooled her head, seemingly. But, you know, we see that her and, you know, Daemon are beefing. And then the Greens try to kill her again. And she's like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, he had his honor. He tried to kill you. He tried to murder
I must go to King's Landing to see if this is real.
I think if I had to guess the trajectory for this season, because Jace keeps giving her these looks that are frustrated. Like, he wants her, like, if he does it again at the council meeting, like, he kind of clenches his jaw when she walks away. Like, he clearly is disagreeing with her and wants her to do something. And if I had to guess, if we get to the Battle of the Gullet at the end of this season, which I think we have to, if he dies at the end of the season, I think that's going to be Like, if he defies her and then, like, flies off and gets killed, I think that's when she'll wake up and see, like, that'll be her arc for the season. Is like, she's kind of mired in indecision and restraint, and I think even in the book they say that, like, Jace's death is what hardens her and turns her into somebody else.
People have been pointing out that his mannerisms this season have been very Damon-esque. Like the way he stands with his like hand on his pommel is very. It gives season 1 Damon at times, and like he kind of like side faces at the council multiple times, and yeah, it feels like he's being built up in that frustration to possibly have something happen, like him defying her to do something in that tragedy.
Well, Damon has been one of his strongest father influences, right? For how many years? I mean, one of the only ones, probably him and Corliss, as much as they see him, I don't really know. But it's his formative years, and like Damon's been the guy. They share dragons. They've got the blood. They're Targaryens. Yada yada yada.
This is just my read on the situation. I do not personally see Damon and Jace or any of Rhaenyra's children by Harwin Strong being close. They didn't seem very, like, I feel like Damon's attitude when Jace tried to confront him at the end of last season was like, oh, this kid, like, just kind of irrelevant to his concept of the way things were going to go from there. I don't know. It's not.
But just because they're not emotionally close doesn't mean that's not someone that he would emulate or he would
sure.
be being modeled for him, right?
And it's similar to the thing that Aegon is talking about or was talking about last week about like taking action, and Daemon is getting something done as far as they know in Harrenhal, and whereas Rhaenyra's just sitting there until she takes a little trip.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of important, like the people you see growing up and the mannerisms you pick up and all that sort of stuff. Like, even if you don't like someone or have issues with them or not very close to them, if they're present in your life, you might start adopting some of their manners if they're your dad. So yeah, and or stepdad.
Everybody's just way too related.
I can't even count. Because also, like, once you go back, like, it's bad.
I mean,
they're great-grandparents and
great
great-great-grandparents were brother and sister. So,
he's also their uncle.
Rhaenyra and Daemon is where the family tree really gets really, really bad, to be fair. Like, it's bad as far as Targaryens go, but their, like, intergenerational one, like, fucking throws everything off. Because then you start having grandparents that are both your great-great-grandfather and your great-great-grandfather and your great-great-great. And it's like, what?
Yeah, I was thinking about Baela and Rhaena, and I was like, oh, they were engaged to their stepbrothers, and I was like, oh, and they also share half-brothers. And for some reason, that made me go, like, this is more than I imagined, even though I knew all this already. Anyway, Targaryen incest, not a new concept.
At least, if it's any consolation, I guess, they are technically less related in part because of the whole Harwin thing. They could be more related if they were Laenor's guys.
Absolutely true. There's a couple of much needed influxes of variant DNA into this situation. Thank God for Harwin Strong and Alicent Hightower.
I did need a family tree after this episode, that's for sure.
And Rhaenys' mom, what's her name? The Baratheon.
Right.
Yeah, but they were cousins too. I think
Jocelyn, that's right. Thank you.
We love a good
Emma's mother was a Targaryen, so that is, I mean...
Yeah, that's also true, yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Greens, because they're so not, like, any different than this. Actually, but they're technically less related. So we have Christian Cole in his new role, a little late to the game, but then he wants to be, he decides that they must be early to getting to Harrenhal before anybody else, so they can claim that part of the Riverlands as their own, against a lot of the wishes of Alicent, especially. And it seems like he's taking his role in stride, I guess, to make some decisions that Otto would not be making. Kind of missed Otto this episode.
I did too. But the catty council scene where they all start devolving into fighting is pretty funny to me. Also, can someone get Fabian Frankel's hair to be better than this? Because we know it can be better than this. And
he did get a haircut this episode.
It's a bad haircut. That's what I'm saying. It's a worse haircut somehow.
I think that's a wig. It looked like it was coming off a little bit to me.
He got a hair.
He cut his hair because he became Hand of the King.
I thought he got a haircut in between that scene and the scene where Allison says goodbye.
Yeah, I thought that was his going to war haircut.
Yeah.
Right, that makes sense too.
I like that he's having were you going to talk about his panic attack in his new office?
I'm going to say how proud I am of him, but yes, I did want to talk about that.
Oh my god.
I mean, I think that, I don't know, I thought it was a very interesting moment for them to show, because it was such a crazy thing that happened, him being a Hand, and I like that he is not like, hell yeah, I'm the Hand. He's like, fuck. Oh god. And also, I think there's a lot of social or class commentary, frankly, in his scenes in this episode.
Yeah, I agree with Mr.
Gawain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And even the other Kingsguard just being like, oh, you.
Well,
why were they nominated without he's the Lord Commander? Like,
because the king decided on it, and they're his drinking buddies, basically.
The org structure is just really borked around here.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy that he comes downstairs and they're like just hanging out. I was like, this is bad decorum.
We're chilling.
Be ashamed.
Yeah.
Especially after, the Jaehaerys thing. You'd think they would be a little bit more, there is that scene later on where Aegon kind of gives them a little bit of a look to, straighten up. Or was that last episode?
It was this episode.
It was this one, yeah. It was after the Laris Smith scene.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you, Cole, about the class conflict. No, because I forget about it too, where it's like there's also like a racial dimension, even though he's white, but like within the universe of the show, he's racialized in that he's Dornish, and I always forget that about him, that he's othered and he's looked down upon, and that puts him at a disadvantage. But he's not incompetent. Like, he's rash and he does stupid things when he's insecure, but like he's at least making decisions that make some degree of sense. Like, he's putting forward a plan when nobody else seems to want to.
Is he actually supposed to be Dornish? I thought they were just like next to Dorne.
Says when she sees him as gods, he's Dornish.
Yeah.
Right.
It's likely a case of like the Stormland, specifically that part of the Stormlands, has a lot of intermingling because there's a lot of fighting back and forth, and because of that, there's Dornish people on both sides of the border, basically.
This episode overall made a good argument for Cole being very talented in the field, but not the one who should be making the decisions for how you get there.
Yeah, I think it's...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's insane, the idea of like the Hand of the King riding out. Like, your place is in Kingsland. You do not need to be leaving the city, generally.
I don't know, that's a Tywin.
He makes what's his name, his king, or his Hand of the King.
He sends Tyrion.
He sends Tyrion to be Hand of the King after he's appointed it.
Because he's like, I got work to do.
Yeah. And even when he, like, the only other time I can think of it is what do you call it? During the crisis with Duskendale. When they're like camped outside of Duskendale. But that's like the king's there. Like, of course he's gonna end up being there. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Hand leading the war effort on like the battle charge is certainly not the best idea, but it doesn't surprise me that the Hand might be a field commander at times, but like they haven't even started the warring yet.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Did y'all notice the coin Aemon was playing with?
Yes.
That's the one he picked up last episode on the floor that didn't get stolen. And the gremlin that he is, I feel like he's stewing up this plan where he's like, I'm going to give it back to Daemon after I kill him. Or something insane like that. But yeah, I caught that the second time around. I was like, oh yeah, he's fixated now because he thinks that, well, he's right, that Daemon was trying to assassinate him. He's like, my nemesis is out there.
He now has
to give him back his coin.
I did not catch that was the same coin. That's great.
God, if they're midair and he throws that coin at Daemon, like in the series finale, I'm just going to laugh so hard.
I think it is also just worth noting the the whole like fortune favors the bold, like the differing attitudes here, like on Dragonstone you have Rhaenyra, who is kind of resigned to war, and you have Alicent, who's still like, did Rhaenyra read my email? Did she write back? Like, can we check on that again? And she like, at this point in the episode, she is the one who still thinks that there might be a way back, but that changes.
Yeah, I think that the women in this episode are trying to be voices of like, let's not be too brash. Let's not like, can we stop what we're doing like with this back and forth that we're having right now, and like maybe think about this a little bit more critically. But in Rhaenyra's case, it leads to inaction. It seems. You do have Daemon going off and doing his own thing, but you also have like her at the council just not doing much. At
this point, I really do kind of hate that stuff, though, because Alicent has lost her grandchild, her daughter was traumatized, and there is seemingly nothing that's coming from her to care about it. And even in this scene, you get this like awful, or even in this episode, sorry, you get this awful interaction between her and Helena, and like it doesn't feel like Alicent gives an iota of care really about her children when this stuff is happening, and she's just like, well, I'll just let Rhaenyra go later on.
I think I have more thoughts on that later.
She's definitely like an avoidant personality in some ways. Like as soon as things get a little too personal and too close, she withdraws. But yeah, I do agree that I've not been a fan of the gender essentialism that's kind of plagued the entire show from the start, of like, men are rash and want war, women are intelligent and want peace. And it's like, I don't think that's how monarchy fueled by dragonfire would work, regardless of what gender you are. Yeah, like lines like Rhaenys telling Rhaenyra that Alicent is being, manipulated by the warmongering men around her. I was like, I don't think that would be true. But who knows? Maybe that'll go away when shit gets crazy later.
I mean, she does also say that Otto Hightower wouldn't have allowed it. She's like, it's the young men, and I do agree with you, but I do think that like there is a certain amount of like when they are all facing dragon warfare that some people would be like, even if they were a little more warlike before, like Rhaenys, they basically, I'm saying I bought Rhaenys being like, we really need to actually pump the brakes before we get to dragon warfare, because this was all well and good, like while we're both like circling each other, but it's about to get real bad.
Sure. I just wish it was drawn a little less along gender lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're really trying to play into that because the show is about that in that way with Rhaenyra, being supposed to be the rightful person on the throne. She's overruled by all these men. And I think that like they're kind of hitting the nail on the head with it a bit. It's like you were saying, Katie, like there's a dichotomy here. There's obviously like the women are more gentle and the men are more like, let's go. You see that with Daemon and Rhaenyra, they are fairly similar people, but because they are what they are, they end up having completely different actions because she's a woman and he's a man. And, like it's both like, yeah, it makes sense, but it also like, it's just so cut and dry. It seems a little bit out of place.
It's a dissection of sexism, but it's also it plays into some benevolent sexism of like the benevolence of women, which is
the
not
caring, unwarlike nature, their inability to feel conflict like men do. It's bullshit. I hate it.
It's almost like they don't know how to show women's rage. I think like they're too afraid to like try to do that, so they're just doing this.
I think that there is some holdover of like a worry from Dany in season 8. I do think that's the case.
Yeah,
I definitely see that with Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rhaenyra, I was a little heartened at her being kind of more willing to go to war in this episode, because anytime Rhaenyra isn't perfectly nice, it's like, okay, we have something to work with here, But yeah, definitely I mean, she kind of goes back and forth, right? Like she's real mad at Alicent. She doesn't want to read her letter. At the same time, she's like very sympathetic towards Sir Auric. She does that plan at the end, and then at the same time, I don't know, like is kind of being coaxed by her council, into further violence or decisions toward violence. Yeah, I don't know. It goes back and forth for me.
Yeah, I think on the one hand, like, it's good to see that women in this episode seem to be a bit more reasonable. However, it's also, like, it just needs to be, I think it needs to be more varied. I did
like her counsel kind of basically trying to force her out of the decision-making process in what very much to me seems like sexism from them.
Oh, for sure.
Right, yeah, that was, like, a big example of just, like, patriarchal norms.
Yeah. And it's like, you're sitting here fighting for the rights of your queen to sit the Iron Throne, and you're going to act like she can't be a part of the decision-making process. Right. Like, come on, guys. But it feels very real to the world, and I think a better example of sexism, or a better, I guess you could say, like, examination of it. More true to the story for sure as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Corlys later not wanting to make Rhaena the heir to Driftmark, where it's like, in theory he should be open to it given the side of the war that he's on, but he's clearly like patronizing his wife a little by furring on it.
There's a certain degree of infantilization, I think, that runs through both of those. Much less with Corlys, because we know he respects Rhaenys, but I didn't think it was an accident that that all the council men were like, why don't you go hide somewhere safe? And then she was like, you mean, like, I'm going to go hide my children somewhere safe, my infant children, basically. I felt like that was a very clear, like, it's appropriate for them to be shepherded away and hidden somewhere. It is not appropriate for the woman who is supposed to rule the kingdom to have that done to her.
And I think to the Corlys one, I think it's supposed to read like that to Rhaenys, and there is the possibility that it is that, but I think it might also just be the Alan and Adam thing that they've been kind of slow baking. That he thinks of these two young men as his possible heirs more than anything, because they know the sea, blah, 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 and they're boys. And I think that's definitely a part of it, obviously. But more that they actually know the sea than anything. But yeah.
I hope that's the case, because I actually really hope that Corlys is like, after Rhaenys dies, he's like, yeah, okay, these are my bastard boys, and they're legitimized now. Sprinkle the wand, But like, if he doesn't, then this conversation is quite odd, because he does need an heir, and he was telling Luke about how he was his heir when Luke was like 7. So,
Duncan, you've joined the cast.
Oh yeah, sorry. Don't mind me. I'm just catching rats.
Here.
Just look.
We hang folks for that. Now.
Did you move that boundary stone, Duncan?
I think you'll find that the accords at Riverrun clearly dictate that the stone be rotated 2 inches to the left. Have you guys finished?
Yeah,
No.
he's a Blackfire.
We're barely into the beginning.
I can't stay. I'm just jumping on for like 5 minutes, but
Do you want to give your rating or anything?
I thought I'd say hi. Yeah, sure. I don't want to go ahead of anyone else, but I can give a quick rating.
Yeah, go for it.
So I liked this episode. I mean, I love this show. Like, so far it's just been really strong writing and character work. I love the return to court intrigue and twisty, turny, grey characters and different personalities bouncing off against each other. I felt like this was probably the weakest episode this season, even though I enjoyed watching it. It feels like it's the burn is getting a bit too slow, and I'm really wanting some more stuff to happen. I feel like last season there was such a great mounting tension, escalating more and more and more, but now we're kind of at the point of conflict. We're at the point of no return. Stuff kind of needs to be happening, and it feels like the characters are kind of dithering and there's little side plots happening. So that was a little frustrating. So maybe like 3.5. But I loved all the different scenes. I like the overarching themes of like sort of it no longer matters what the reason is. Like, people are just committing to violence, and it's kind of like, well, what comes first, the horse or the cart? Are they wanting war because they're innately conditioned to just want to fight, and that's how they express themselves, and the reason doesn't matter? Or has the reason become lost to time? And I thought that was kind of the message that the final scene had, that in some ways the prophecy, the fact that they keep coming back to this prophecy is really frustrating. But in another sense, even within that scene, it's talked about as just this story that King Viserys used to tell, that doesn't really matter. It's just become lost to time. The war started. So I liked that stuff. I didn't mind the final scene between Viserys and Alicent when I watched it, but the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of frustrated with it. And I mentioned a little bit on the forums why. Alicent is seeking peace, and I feel like taking Rhaenyra prisoner would be a path to peace. So the fact that she kind of leaves and the episode ends on this ambiguous note is a bit weird. And it also seems like a really big risk for Rhaenyra to take. And as it was also discussed, I feel like having that distance between them for a season and having them reunited after Rhaenyra takes King's Landing could have been really potent television. And it probably still will be, but having that distance between them and having all the horrible things happen and then them finally coming back afterwards, after all said and done, and they've probably both changed a lot as characters, could have been really great television a season from them. But, I'm sure it'll still happen.
Especially if it came as like the realization of a confusion, like,
And I keep seeing these like trailers, like next episode on, and you see dragons soaring through the sky and fire exploding. And then you get to it, and it's just one dragon chasing a couple of horses for a while and then flying off. And I'm like, damn it, come on, let's see some fire.
Yeah, apparently
fire
that's
and
next.
Blood. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
There's not enough fire and blood in this for me personally.
Yeah.
I big agree on your position of like when that conversation should have happened. It's my main contention with it is that it should have happened at a different time under different circumstances. Not that it actually happened. That's fine. The dialogue is good, and these two actors are great. They know their stuff, and the scenery is beautiful, and it's shot beautifully, and like it's great. But the problem with it is that it's makes no sense how we got here, and feels so out of whack for everything else for both of the characters that it's frustrating. It feels so contrived right now that I keep getting like season 6, season 7 flashbacks, and that should not be my viewing experience.
Yeah, we have PTSD from David and Dan. So I'm trying to like make sure that we're not being unfair, because it's like.
I do think we have to. Sorry.
No, you go, Michal.
I do think that we have to. I'm not saying anyone's wrong by any means, but I do think that it's important to watch what the impact of this conversation is on Rhaenyra and Alicent's approach to the war. And to each other. Like, I could see Alicent being like, whoa, wait, I made the wrong decision. I was hasty and angry and, whatever. And then she psychologically is in a very different place from Rhaenyra being like, okay, well, I guess it's war then, So I think, I don't know, I am sympathetic to the idea that you want these two characters to have a final word that isn't, that is taking into account all of the recent atrocities past Viserys' death. I'm not saying it was, done perfectly or anything, but I love how we just skipped right to the end of the episode.
I think this is a good time to just make this the end scene discussion, so then Bing can partake if he likes to, as well, since I know you have to leave early and you were a bit partial about that scene. So we'll just make this that discussion. So
okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have to head out in just a few minutes, but so I think I get where Ben is coming from with the contrivedness of the circumstances that led to this scene. I guess it's just that I've been watching for 3 episodes straight. There's been again a bunch of contrived circumstances, and I know the 2 of those are sort of in the books. Okay, fine, but it's still I guess my resistance towards these type of things is just broken down. I think ultimately, part of me kind of like the absurdness of how this happened. I do think the dialogue between those two it's also kind of there's also a sense of, this is kind of silly. Especially when Allison said, "Oh, the Conqueror." That part was pretty hilarious. I guess so. I don't know I don't know that I still can't really decide if this scene is good or bad. I kind of enjoyed watching it. It almost felt like a funny train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm landing on I like this scene, but if it happened at a different time, it might have been better, but I'm not going to, necessarily hate it for being at this time. I think that, we were talking in the pre-show this season about, how were they going to have Allison and Rhaenyra interact with each other, and my speculation was letters, and I think I still prefer the letter idea. However, this is a very creative way to have them come together, and I think that they've shown enough that King's Landing is not impenetrable, and so it is relatively easy for them to get in there. Travel time aside, we can all get mad about that in previous Game of Thrones episodes. That being said, the dialogue was great. There's a couple parts where I'm just like, Rhaenyra has that, "Oh, I got this all wrong. Oh," and it's just like comical. Like
it should have ended with the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme over the credits.
I agree.
But it's kind of, I feel like what they're going for with the show in general is to show just how misconstrued everything gets. It's almost like a game of telephone. Rhaenyra has what Viserys has told her, and this is coming across all these generations of Targaryens as well. And then it seems like she's probably not going to be able to pass on the message to anybody, or maybe there's one person. But it gets to this point where Alicent hears that she could have been wrong, and she's met with this thought of what if I did do it wrong? And she just doubles down. And I think that's very accurate in what anybody would do when confronted with such a thing. Her husband died and said this thing to her, and now her whole world has potentially changed. No, you're just going to want to stick to the norm. So I felt like it was that part of it was just so genuine, and it makes a lot of sense for their characters.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the scene itself was credible. I can imagine, the time, the travel speed is fine because King's Landing and Dragonstone aren't that far away. They have dragons. They've established that they have spy networks, and they can infiltrate King's Landing. So that's fine. I think for me, it's more part of the scene feels out of character. I think Rhaenyra putting herself in that position wasn't quite credible to me, because it's a huge risk. Anything could have gone wrong. She could easily have been taken prisoner or killed. And I feel like she didn't convince me that a letter wouldn't have sufficed. And I also think dramatically, letter writing would be far more interesting. And you could even do something where the characters can imagine they're in the same room as they're exchanging letters. So I just didn't feel...
do that Last Jedi thing.
Yeah, well, not
showcase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Time, I guess.
Exactly. So these two characters have great chemistry. So if you want to have them talking to one another, you can do that through a kind of letter writing montage or whatever. But yeah, it didn't make sense that Rhaenyra would put herself in that position. And even if they I don't want to play backseat director, but it felt like even just having more warrior monks around her would have made it more credible, or just have a shot of Cyrax watching over her in the distance, to where if something did go wrong, there was a plan. But it felt like it was really reckless and put her whole campaign at stake. And also, it felt a bit out of character for Alicent, because she's being threatened with a knife, but as soon as she gets a few paces away from Rhaenyra, why not call out to the guards and arrest her? She also wants a path to peace, and taking the pretender to the throne hostage would give them a huge advantage, and maybe give them a path to peace, or kind of put the enemy at a huge disadvantage, and create an opportunity for negotiations. So I don't know. It just felt out of character, I guess, for the two the two leads.
Michal, what did you want to say?
Well, two things. One, I think it's important to remember that the coup was happening without Alicent's knowledge, and her buy-in was hearing Viserys, right? Otto was 100% doing it anyway. So I think from her perspective, taking out the major strut under which all of this has been resting, or on which all of this has been resting, to me, I understand why she was no, it has to be there. This has to be there. It just has to. And I will be interested to see if she changes her mind. The other thing I wanted to say is I agree. I would have loved an evocative letter writing montage that would have slapped. But there is cinematic precedent for something like this. I'm not a super expert, but the movie they've made a couple times about Mary Queen of Scots, where she has a conversation with Elizabeth that definitely never happened, but they're hidden away, and Elizabeth has somehow secreted herself into Scotland, and whatever. And it's a pretty significant, cinematic conversation. So to me, it kind of felt like I was almost I was okay if all the logic didn't stack up 100%. Maybe it would have been better if they had dedicated one of the conversations to Rhaenyra and Jace. What if Rhaenyra told Jace, hey, I'm doing this is going down. It is possible that this will go very pear-shaped, and here's what you do in that case. And then we get to see his reaction to it. At least to, I guess, conceive of to have Rhaenyra understand visually and express to us that she doesn't necessarily expect this to go perfectly and is aware of the risks. I don't know.
Also, it kind of does make the Greens seem very ineffectual in part. That okay, we've already had the blood and cheese thing happen, and now Rhaenyra Targaryen can sneak into the sept where the Queen Mother hangs out every single day, and no one's checking anything. I don't know.
Nobody's checking.
Lord Commander is out, but I feel
Lord Commander is out. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah,
a little short-handed.
There's a couple of others. Willis Fell. Come on, guys. We gotta.
I think they've established well enough that the Greens are kind of incompetent.
There's incompetence, and then there's this, and it feels wacky. Scooby Doo is a good I guess use of an example of it, like you said earlier. Being it feels very Scooby Doo.
The idea that neither of these sides are just prepared for war.
Yeah, I like that too. I think it kind of feels like. I feel like the past few episodes have just felt oh no, this happened. Oh no, why? How did this happen? All on both sides, even the acts that they do, it's why? What the fuck? Why? How? And it feels like a lack of control.
I think one thing we're seeing is that a lot of the norms that they live their whole life under are being torn apart.
Mm-hmm.
None of them could imagine a child being killed in their bed. So security was lax. None of them could imagine a Kingsguard breaking his oath. So again, they didn't see that coming. None of them can probably imagine an assassination attempt happening in the Great Sept of Baelor, or the assumption is that that's the realm of the Septons and they will provide their own security. So it's kind of like the world of peace that they lived under their whole life is suddenly falling apart, and there's this new violent, world of paranoia and dread is sort of transforming around them.
Yeah,
and maybe they're still catching up to that.
Yeah, I also think that this scene works for this last scene with Rhaenyra and Alicent works for me if I think it might be this next episode. Rhaenyra is more let's do this shit. That's kind of the final straw for her. Knowing that Alicent cannot be, she can't change her opinion. She can't, try to infiltrate, both sides. They can't work together to make this stop in any way. So let's go to Mysaria and Rhaenyra having this little brief discussion. They talk about what happened with Eric, and they also talk about, they have that one line about the dragons being restless and maybe they're lonely. And my only kind of thing with this was wondering if they're going to replace Nettles with Mysaria. Does that seem... I think that we were speculating this, but this episode is a little bit more real to me, which I'm honestly kind of disappointed in. Any thoughts from you guys?
I thought she was hitting on her, to be honest.
I could see that.
I can see that too.
They've had a few meaningful glances at each other, and I don't know, speculating on the loneliness of the dragon out at sea while glancing sidelong at the lonely queen whose husband is away. I think she's trying to get in.
Yeah, I feel like that's
I like that.
foreshadowing, hopefully, for the dragon seeds, but I don't see her being one. That would be so weird.
I mean, I love that angle instead of her getting with the queen. That would be very exciting.
Yeah, she could be like the queen's, chamber friend, bed warmer. The queen. They were just very close.
They do kind of,
and they were roommates.
kind of speculate on that, like in Fire. Well, not necessarily Rhaenyra and Mysaria, but like later in Fire and Blood, when everybody's in King's Landing, like Mysaria is there, and like she's. Like somebody, it's probably Mushroom, thinking about that. Like she's picked up her relationship again with Daemon, and Rhaenyra gives them some permission, but maybe they were all in it together. So I could see them like making them,
just a little three-way.
Mushroom's got like 60% truth, so you never know.
Do we believe that Sea Smoke is he sad because Laenor has died?
I was honestly like, why didn't he go with him? Why couldn't he just like pieced out and went to fucking Pentos or Ravos or wherever the fuck he went.
Yeah, like Danny dies and like Drogon flies off and just keeps flying forever, but Sea Smoke's like, well, my rider's gone, maybe? The like connection that they share with the riders is interesting, right? Because there are never two riders for one dragon at the same time. So that'll be interesting to see.
I think that's what's happened. I think that they're just going to be that we're going to have a minute where Sea Smoke gets a new rider, whether that's Adam or whatever, and she's going to be like, oh no, that means that my other husband is dead.
Or will it cut to him like, dead somewhere? Like, will we see him again? Or will that be I don't know. That's honestly a hard thing to handle, actually.
I feel like that'd be more interesting for Jace. Like his realization, if they do again, like in Fire and Blood, it's Jace that pushes the dragon seeds. And then someone claiming Sea Smoke, and then the realization that this man that he kind of pseudo thinks of as a father, who he has, they kind of brought it up in this conversation, in this episode, him and Bela's conversation about Harwin and Laenor. I think it could be interesting, actually.
Well, Jace thinks he's dead already. Everyone except Rhaenyra and Daemon.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I keep forgetting
Laenor's boyfriend.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I didn't think of it like that.
I was thinking about it from this like point of view of Corlys, and then I was like, nope.
He thinks his son is dead too. Yeah. Although seeing Adam claim Sea Smoke, his other son's dragon, would be interesting as well from that perspective. From the Corlys's, because it's like a confirmation of his inheritance almost.
Again, I'm just really curious. I'm sure that Rhaenys is going down next week, so I'm so curious if they like part them on a bad note where like she finds out about the whole brothers and gets mad or whatever, or if they just keep it a secret and then in episode 5 or whatever, Corlys is like, oh, oops, yeah, I'm really sad, but I do have 2 extra heirs. Yay.
Rhaenys knows that Laenor is alive, though. She tells that to Rhaenyra. I don't know if Corlys knows. Like,
wait, what?
No,
I missed something?
No, Rhaenys last season, she totally like has a line about like, you think I wouldn't know my son's hands or something like that after they find the body that's all charred up. I'm like 99% sure that she knows. I don't know if her husband knows. It's been a while since I watched the first season, but yeah, my list of like who knows that Laenor is dead versus who knows if Laenor is alive is a little unclear.
I don't remember the scene at all.
I do remember that scene, and it's slowly coming back to me. I think you're right, Katie.
Well, I know what I'll be watching after this.
Shocking lack of knowledge all around. And I just rewatched that a few weeks ago.
Just to touch on Nettles for a sec, I'm really hoping that she comes into the next season. I know I don't think she's cast for this season, and I don't like the Game of Thrones combination of characters thing, really.
I really don't like the idea of not having Nettles be in this show. If it happens.
No one likes the idea, so like, of course, they'll do it.
It's also just like it's like the one actual black character in the books, like that is clearly in the books.
It's just a cool rogue character too. Like it's like, and like she claims a dragon in a different way, and like there's just so many aspects of it that are like you can't not do it.
Yeah,
I think it's
like,
very.
They didn't cast Darren, and we're gonna get Darren, so
I'm still confused about that.
I think it's very telling that her claiming of a dragon is through sheep, right? And all we know about the I guess Valyrian freehold Valyrians are that they were sheep herders, and like I don't know. I think cutting her out would be a disservice. I would hate that.
Yeah, I also think they try to be very tight about information leaking out on these shows. It doesn't always work out, but like they don't put the episode titles out generally. I mean, like till like the next day. Like this one was called The Burning Mill for some reason, right? Not necessarily what I would have gone with, but like maybe if that leaks, it's not super spoilery or something. But next week's episode, we've known the title of for like weeks, and they're really pushing that one. Apparently, people have already seen it, so they want that one to be hyped. So it's very strategic.
I've heard other people have seen it.
What's the episode?
It's the episode 4 is titled "A Dance of Dragons," right?
I think they'd save that for something else, but crazy.
They're all just all the dragons just die the next episode. That's how they're gonna clear all this up.
Jesus.
It's titled "A Dance of Dragons." I wasn't sure if it was a dance with dragons or what it is, but that's what it's titled. And I think Aziz had posted, like History of Westeros had posted, like they'd already seen the episode, and it's like the wall's amazing, and they can't wait for everybody to see it, and so I'm like, like that's not something they typically do, like HBO or these productions. So I'm curious.
I've heard multiple people say that they've seen it, and it's like
spoilers on my feed. Like I got spoiled enough with this, just missing it after one day. I don't.
I know, and it's but I mean, like, when we were plotting, even before the season, when we're talking when things would happen, the mid-season is kind of when we figure and things are pushing to. I mean, I think as book readers, you kind of see what's coming. So I'm curious. Like I said, they try to hide stuff, but then they try to get ahead of stuff too. So like maybe like the Nettles thing, they're just like, we don't want that. Maybe they have a plan, and they're just. I'm being hopeful. Like maybe they're just trying to like kind of like let's focus on other stuff, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I wonder if people were paid to say that it was the best episode ever or something, but I kind of doubt it.
HBO, pay us, please.
I have suspicions.
All right, let's move on. We have that brief discussion with Rhaena, and I'm going to combine that with the saying goodbye to Rhaena and crew. Basically, Rhaenyra decides that everybody, all her children and Rhaena are going to be going to, or all her small children anyways, are going to be going to Pentos? I was a little confused. Are they going to the Vale or are they going to Pentos? Or are they going both?
Thank you. I was very confused.
It seems
she was like, you're going to the Vale, but also then you're going, but you're actually going to Pentos, and then go to the Vale.
Oh, but some of you are staying in the Vale.
I'm a little confused. I think what is happening is Joffrey's going to the Vale. The plan is Joffrey's going to the Vale, where they will stay, and now, but she wants the boys to eventually go to Pentos?
Like, it sounds like she like, I can't give them a dragon, but I'll give them a dragon. And then,
well, yeah, she's giving them Taxis, which is
just a little.
I think Joffrey is, or isn't Jace going to bring his brother? I don't know.
No.
That's
a different thing that happens later on.
They've conflated so many things together in this. Like right here, I'm like trying to untangle what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't really. I guess we're gonna have to clear it up on the back end because I thought that I was just being an idiot not knowing. But basically, they're leaving, and I feel for Rhaena. She's like the only one without a dragon. She's got to be. It's another example of women having to women. She has to be the quote-unquote nursemaid of these children, her step-siblings, and half-siblings.
Yeah, it really had strong, like, oh no, you're important, you're the babysitter like vibes.
I think it really worked to showing how Rhaenys would be just like so broken by this war in part, or Rhaena. Jesus Christ, these names.
Yeah, right.
Because I mean, she just doesn't get to participate because of her lack of dragon, and it keeps getting rubbed in her face over and over and over again. And when her sister's out there risking her life over and over and over again, and she's worried for her, obviously, she can't do anything about it. She can't do anything to help her really, other than going to the Vale.
They don't even like offer her in a marriage, which wouldn't exactly be empowering, but at least would be like, your position has value. This is kind of like, a maid could do this job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks that her sister is so much cooler than her.
That's
A
so
feeling
brutal.
that no one in the real world has ever felt or dealt with.
Right.
I mean, you see Bela flying around on Moondancer, I was like, yeah, she is actually the shit.
Kill Kristen Cole. Kill him. Ah.
I do feel a little bit like, we didn't get to see Rhaena's reaction to Luke dying. We don't know how she really feels about that. I'm sure there's complicated feelings with that since it's her stepbrother, but as well. So I don't know. I want some more fleshing out of her. In this scene, we also get the dragon eggs, which are apparently confirmed to be 3 of those are supposed to be Daenerys' eggs.
Can I just say how much I fucking hate that?
No. That
So
can't
much.
be true. Wait, that can't be true. Sorry.
It is. It is.
No,
it is.
That's not true.
No,
Alyssa Farman.
it's true in the best way possible. It's true in the way that like they said it outside of the narrative, and they're like, "Oh yeah, guys, those are like all the little tidbits they would give us. George told us this, whatever. That we can just say, hey, fuck off. It wasn't even on screen." So it's
took a
true.
second
Yeah, sure.
For my brain to catch up, I was like, no, Alyssa Farman that was like 100 years
No.
ago.
It's.
Pencils down. You don't get to add stuff in the behind the scenes.
I hate it so much.
No, I mean it's cool to have that
Nothing.
stuff, but yeah, I can just ignore it. So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting a little heavy-handed with the prequelness of it all.
This is
Well,
like
honestly-
every time I see that fucking dagger. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the dagger, it's all kind of a piece, and it's not like I don't expect them to tie in stuff to Game of Thrones, but like, not to go back to the end conversation, but like, to me, the awkwardness was like the parsing of the language of this fantasy prophecy that like, and also like a scene that we had viewed as viewer, like the meta was kind of messing with me. And it's kind of similar when people are talking about like, oh, these are the dragon eggs. I'm like, I don't know, maybe they are, and Alyssa Farman doesn't exist in this version, or maybe they're not, and whatever. But like the attention paid to them is it rubs me the wrong way for some reason.
I don't like it. I think they're trying. That's like what they were told to do. They were like, we're gonna have this great story. New writers are really great, but you really just need to put this in there.
This is some Marvel
gonna
Universe
force it
ass
in there.
bullshit, and I can't stand it. Not everything needs to tie into everything.
Mm-hmm.
You make the world smaller. You make it less fun when you tie everything in together into this giant, like, oh, this is like a reference right here, and we're supposed to point at the screen and go, oh, it's like that other thing I really liked.
Yeah.
Oh
Fans
my God.
love when you do that. Yeah.
Did Winterfell do that for you, GCO?
No, because it was a subtle music cue. Okay, it was the start.
It was the
fade
wall.
away.
I literally cried at that scene.
See, that I didn't like. I thought going to the wall was bullshit. That was bullshit. Actually, we shouldn't have gone to the wall. We should have gone to Barrowton or White Harbor. That would have been
No.
cool. Fuck the wall. Why did we need to go there?
No, I like that a lot.
Did they really make Cregan like a member of the Night's Watch? Is what we were meant to believe in that scene? That he gets sent to the wall? Like when he's a
No.
kid?
No,
No?
he's just showing him around. They've done everything. They've done Winterfell. They've been bros for a while, and now they're at the wall so that he can go back home. I think that's what I'm meant to see, is that he's seen it all already, guys.
No. I think she's talking about the scene where they have the little selection thing. I think it's supposed to be another Stark that's just being selected to go to the wall,
Right.
and Cregan's talking over it.
Yeah. That's just Cregan's the voiceover that we thought was Kit Harington for a second.
Yeah.
I hated that scene.
It was so bad. Can
You
anybody
hated
just
it?
not
You didn't
talk
even
like
want it?
that?
All right. Let's move on to Damon at Harrenhal. So we get Damon with Caraxes. They land on the top of the castle. Don't know how nobody hears them or comes to check out what's going on, but I guess they're short-staffed. And he wanders around, looking at every corner, very slowly. And then we crash... what's his name? We crash their dinner.
Sir Simon Strong!
Sir Simon Strong.
Best character this episode, by the way.
Living legend.
Yes, he is a legend. And they have half dinner together since Damon didn't eat anything.
All right,
I do
I'm
like
going to
the-
say why. Sorry. We're out of practice. Oh my god. Super quickly. I liked Damon wandering around Harrenhal because it was like, I love the idea that it is this massive, like, unfathomable thing that can be 98% just like empty, rain-drenched corridors, and there's like 2 rooms where there are people and fire, and like nobody knows what's going on in any of the other parts of the castle because it's just too freaking huge.
Perfect.
Yes. Katie, what did you want to say?
I really like the shot that they give us when Damon is flying in on Caraxes. It's like a POV shot down the neck of the dragon. They do a similar shot later with Moondancer. It's really good CGI because it gives you a feeling of, one, like what you would see if you were in the saddle, but also just like how Caraxes slithers through the air, the way he kind of like moves his neck in a very sinuous way as he's flying. It was just really cool. Like, it was like a good weighty bit of like creature development. And of course we get Caraxes' little squeaky like goose call. He's just the best
Also,
dragon.
When you consider how loud a thunderstorm would be in a castle like that, it kind of makes sense why you wouldn't be able to hear. Like, actually. And again, it's how absurdly massive it is. I loved seeing the ruined hall. That was amazing. With the ceiling gone. Damon actually looked kind of okay in his armor. I've kind of hated his armor, but it looked good today in the rain. Or in this episode.
I love that armor.
Yeah.
Mm,
And apparently,
Always.
Matt Smith just loves being wet. So
real.
he like
Real.
all day they were just soaking him, and he just like loved it. He'd rather be wet than hot. So
Is that what he
was
said
getting
in the
his
after
nuts.
the episode?
It was well, that was on the like I don't know
The making
the
of.
side series they do, like the hour-long production thing.
Really recommend watching those, by the way.
They are really good, and like it's not a ton on like spoilers, or it's a lot on production stuff, and they are really good.
They spent 20 weeks making Aegon's armor. That's half a baby.
Wow. That is half a baby.
I kind of want to watch. I've been so traumatized by like the after the episodes that I just turn it off immediately. I don't want to hear what anyone says.
No, this show has not been like that, and they did a whole series for season 1, and they're doing season 2 side by side, and they're like 45-minute, hour-long production episodes mostly. They go into some details. There's some like the characters say some stuff, and you're like, oh, that was the motivation in that scene. Like, there's been a few things that didn't quite translate, but mostly it's just like, oh damn, that was practical. Like, look what they did. Like, it's impressive.
I guess I'll give it a try.
I don't need them to explain things to me. I know more than they do. I don't.
I go back and forth between like, oh, this is awesome, to oh, Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
Yeah, well, look, David and Dan don't appear in any of these, so I think that's the difference. Yeah, but Harrenhal was amazing, and we've gotten so much fun out of like the creepy, like, what was it we were doing in the chat, like the Airbnb listing for Harrenhal. Like, do not recommend. Washerwoman said I would die here.
Couldn't eat the food.
Yeah, no locks on doors, swords provided, 1 star.
Yeah, can we talk about the like ghost of Harrenhal that happened for him? It was that was my favorite scene of this episode.
That
I think
was I
right there.
really love that. You get Millie coming back.
That was
And
great.
some very like, to me, that is subtext that he sees Rhaenyra as Millie still,
Right.
as that version of her.
Right.
Oh my god.
exactly.
So
Really?
good.
That's not my like read on his character. Like, I think he sees Rhaenyra like as 2 different people. Like, he sees, like, the person he dreams about is the younger version that he couldn't have, that he wishes that he could have had. And the Rhaenyra that he has now, even though she's the same person ostensibly, like, it's not the version of her that he wants. And so, like, it makes sense to me that, like, in his dreams, one, of course, Daemon is just messed up sexually, so he's, like, attracted to like, the 14-year-old over his adult wife. But also, like, that's where, like, his tenderness is. Like, that's where his grief lives. So, like, when he sees her stitching up the dead child, like, those two feelings come out. Like, he's able to cry because it's, like, this is what he actually wanted for himself. And that's also what he's ashamed about, and he also can't, like, he can't let it out when he's awake. If that makes any sense.
No, I think it does. I kind of had similar feelings with, like, you know, that's the Rhaenyra he fell in love with. That's the one that he sees. And I was kind of like, you know, like, when you have younger cousins and you have younger family members, you kind of always see them as children in my mind. And that's the kind of vibe I was getting from this a little bit, which it gave me a little ick, but also, like, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's some cross vibes there that are like, ooh, sweet, and ooh, like, put him on a list.
I mean, that's the. I mean, I just totally stealing what Katie said and jumping off it. Like, that, it's not just the version he fell in love with; it's the version of Rhaenyra he pursued. You know, and like, I can imagine that getting very wedged and not the healthiest person in the world's psyche. Although that's a race to the bottom, frankly, on this show.
Yeah.
Like, Daemon's never happy. He only wants things that he can't have. And
yes.
so he is haunted by the version of Rhaenyra that he thinks would have made him happy.
And I think it's also the version of Rhaenyra that he had power over, honestly.
Yeah, he's not happy because his wife is an adult now.
Yes.
Yeah, he wouldn't have
Yes.
to murder her children if those children were with him.
I think it is the idealized version of her for him, which is so gross. But his idealized version of her is the one that he can control, and it's this teenage version of her. And I think it's also a sort of oh god, like an in love with the idea of her innocence, quote unquote. And it's all gross to me, but he having her, like, sewing up the child felt tied into that for me. Like, he's forcing her out of it.
Yeah, it's almost like he would want to do that, or he wouldn't want to do that to that version of Rhaenyra, but he's less fussed about, like, doing it to actual Rhaenyra.
He has some guilt that lives inside of him, but he can't, like, face it outside of, like, the most, like, the part of him that yearns, like, the deepest, most stunted part of his heart.
He's like stuck in high school guy. I mean, right? Like, you know, people, they get married and they grow up and they, like, still imagine their wife when they were in high school together, and, oh man, if only we'd done this, or like, there's definitely an aspect of that, you know. I mean, with dragons and a lot of narcissism and rage issues.
Word. I thought it was so cool. Like, the thing that really tipped me over into, like, oh, this is badass, is him waking up in front of the heart tree. Because then I was like, oh, we are in lore zone.
Yeah. Something's happening, yeah.
Yeah. And
Brand's
it's crazy. Well, because it's so funny. I feel like non-book readers would just be like, all right, he's in a cold, rainy forest. You know, and for book readers, it's like, oh my god, he's in front of the forest. Like, he's in a tree.
Someone pointed out that the heart tree is, like, reaching out across the bay towards the Isle of Faces, and it's so good. It's so good. This scene is amazing.
Yeah, and I do like. I don't know if that girl got a name, but it's a little bit like blatant, but, you know, foreshadowing of his future death.
Yeah, it's Alice Rivers.
That's Alice.
Yeah,
that's Alice. Yeah.
Who I thought was blonde in the book, but I haven't read it since 2018. So
no, she's dark haired.
Okay.
I don't know. They have trouble getting hair color and eye color right on the show, so
Foreshadowing is cool because it's like, oh yeah, like, Daemon totally is gonna die here. Like, this place is, like, they're kind of like, it's a place of introspection for him, because of course it is. Like, this is where he's going to sit and wait for Aemond while he's carving the marks in the tree. Please God, let him do that. It's really cool in the book.
Yeah.
That just crystallized something for me that I hadn't realized, which is that, like, Game of Thrones would never have done this. Like, intimate a character's fate, especially like Daemon, because like that was why they didn't do the House of the Undying and whatever. And like you can go back and forth on those being correct decisions in the moment, but like for House of the Dragon to just be like, no, we're dealing with prophecy, we're dealing with prophetic dreams, and they're true, and we're like, you don't even have to speculate about it. We're telling you what's going to happen.
Yeah, and well, Game of Thrones didn't have a full deck to work with. They didn't have the full script, so I can forgive that. Here, it's like they have a basic outline, and I'm like, oh yeah, we know who dies, we know who lives, like, and a lot of the audience probably does too.
Well, what Michal was pointing out, I think correctly, was the House of the Undying, the Rob scene in it, where we see Rob, quite literally what happens to Rob, the sewn head,
the Rob part, right?
Yeah, the sewn head of the wolf on Rob's carcass, and he's reaching out like for help.
But that was clearly because the visual maybe was would have been giving away the game too much for a viewing audience.
Sure, and we can argue about like the degrees to which they could have done stuff and not done stuff. But like I just like the idea that House of the Dragon is being kind of fearless in that respect.
Agree.
All right, let's move on to some of these more King's Landing scenes. So just going to touch quickly on the Helena and Alicent scene of them. Looks like that they're doing a bit of a child handoff. Looks like Alicent was taking care of... there's too many names to remember.
Jaehaera.
My sister...
Roll off your tongue, Casey.
My sister was talking to her, and she's not a book reader. She watches the show now, and she's just like, every time she talks to me, she's like, I don't know any of their names, and the recap is not enough for me. So I just watch the YouTube videos to make sure I know their names before watching each episode, and I'm just like, aw, that's cute. But then doing this, I'm like, maybe I should do that, because I clearly don't remember. But yeah, so they do a bit of a handoff, and we have some discussion between Helena and Alicent, and they talk about grief, and Helena says that she forgives Alicent, which I presume has a lot of meaning to it, or a lot of different meanings to it, but I thought was fascinating, honestly. Like, if there's one scene that I've been thinking about since watching the episode, it's that one, for me.
Well, it's also, like, Helena, so is she... I agree that the interpretation is probably that she, is forgiving Alicent for being with Cole, and just, whatever, during Blood and Cheese. However, because it's Helena, she could also be forgiving her for something that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I'm just like on who's going to kill Helena watch, because somebody's pushing her out that window, and I don't want it to be Cole, but I really don't want it to be Alicent.
Oh god.
I don't think Alicent.
So you don't think she'll kill herself at any point?
No.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hope not, actually, but I mean, that death is also, maybe she gets in a fight with someone and it ends that way, and they say, oh, she was in grief. And
is
like,
she the type of person to get into a fight?
Yeah, or Cole. I mean, I could easily see Cole being like,
well, Cole's
him
gone.
having Doesn't he come back, though?
I think he actually doesn't. I think Rhaenyra takes over King's Landing, and I think Cole's out in the field for...
Yeah, Cole gets the arrows on the way back, right? He's like trying to take King's Landing when he gets killed. Or he's marching towards King's Landing, I think, when they get ambushed.
Yeah, they pepper him for arrows.
But I think Cole
it.
leaves later than he left just here.
He goes to Harrenhal after, after Rook's Rest. That's what happens.
Yeah, Daemon leaves, goes back to Dragonstone, they take King's Landing, and then Aemond and Cole are in the field for basically until they die.
Yeah, and then they take Harrenhal, and what a tragedy is about to unfold when that happens, because
and kills her Simon.
I need Simon to live, man. I love him. I love him in this show so much.
Anyway, yeah, so maybe Alicent shoves her own child out of the window onto spikes. I really hope not.
I mean,
it could be like an unintentional thing. Maybe she's having like a prophetic vision and walks out of a window.
Well, everyone's
like
very...
Like her prophecy is just overwhelming her.
Everyone's very sympathetic to Alicent's accidents, so...
He could come back. I mean, it wouldn't. The way they handwave travel on the show, it wouldn't be hard to be like, okay, I went and now I'm here again. I'm going back out.
There is a
Forgot
scene in the
milk.
You might meet them in
trailer.
the sept.
Wait, there's a scene in the trailer where Cole is like, "We've given the war to the dragons now." That's like the grace note of, I think, the last trailer, and we haven't seen that yet. So maybe he will come back
There is
and kill
also
Helena. Yay!
there's also a scene in the trailer where Alicent looks like she is not in King's Landing. So I wouldn't be surprised if these characters are moving around a bit.
I mean, my real hope is that they Laenor Helena and, whatever. Like, if we're gonna do that to someone, could we just please do it to this poor tortured woman? But,
You mean like dress a servant up like her and then throw her on the
I
spikes?
mean, I don't want an
instead?
innocent servant to die either. But just have her disappear and then everyone be like, oh, she just threw herself out the window. I don't know.
You can go hang out with Laenor and all the other escapees.
Like, don't worry, we killed a rando. You're covered.
They're in the released from House of the Dragon box.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of took this scene more so in, like, Helena potentially forgiving Alicent for making her do the procession, more so, or for maybe not having enough grief with her. So that was kind of where I took it, but I think it could make more sense in the other way as well.
I mean, I forgive you for killing me in the future would be pretty amazing, but
That would
horrifying
be
as
crazy.
well. Yeah.
But also, I
I
want
need you
more...
guys to send me ice cream if that's true.
Yeah, I really love we had it with Damon this episode with the dream and Alice Rivers prophesizing his death, but I do love the amount of prophecy in this show. It felt like there was a complete lack of it in Game of Thrones proper.
And I like how it kind of dovetails with the idea of the war has a mind of its own, and no one can kind of escape it. They're all getting sucked into it, and these two characters, Alicent and Rhaenyra, who otherwise would have been best of friends, are just kind of wrenched into these opposing positions by the forces of the world.
Right. All right, let's move on to Aegon. So we have this scene with him preparing to fly to Harrenhal, and he's talking with Larys, and it seems like he ultimately decides maybe he doesn't want to fly to Harrenhal. And he also makes Larys his Master of Whispers, officially.
Question, what was Larys doing otherwise?
I know, right? He got the title.
He was the Lord Confessor. I mean, he was basically the King's torturer.
Oh, okay, fine. There.
Yeah.
It's just there.
I like this. I mean, as Michal said, that armor is not coming off of him easily next episode when it gets melted onto his skin. But I do like him, looking in the mirror and trying to kind of get an estimate of himself of what kind of king he is. I did think it was interesting that, because he can flip very quickly from being jovial to being scary. His bro Kingsguard are laughing about their vows of chastity, but he sounded very genuine when he said it, when he questioned it at first and kind of just looked at them to put them in their place. But then he ends up taking them to the brothel, so it's
well, he didn't take them, he took the squire, right? He was like, no, you guys aren't allowed to do anything. They went, but you have to come because I'm the king, and I'm still the bro who's going to take the squire. But guys, you have vows, and they were like, And apparently one of them is a rain, by the way, which I thought was great.
The other is the Turtle House, the Estermont.
Yeah, I got to be honest. Is anyone else not ready to lose Aegon? I didn't think I would say this. I mean, because fuck Aegon, and he's just the stupid fuck boy. And in the books, you're he's just useless, and he's just not a great character. And in the 3 episodes so far, they've actually made him interesting, and the frat bro guy. It's just that is fun. I mean, it's ridiculous and fun. I'm I want to see him bumble with that shit some more. And we're probably this is probably it.
He's one of the most interesting characters on the show.
Yeah.
And
right?
I think he can get burned and still be present. He spends a lot of time soaking in milk of the poppy and being delirious. But if he's bedridden, he's still present. He could probably still talk, even if he can't,
But this is what I guess I'm kind of like trying to rethink, because like in my head, like he disappears and Sunfire disappears, and it's like for the whole surprise that we get later on. And the story is so quick reading through The Princess and the Queen or Fire and Blood, like it works. He's not gone for that long in the time that you're spending with the story. But in a TV show, like if he would be gone for a very long time, just be off screen.
Yeah, they're going to have to accelerate that.
Yeah,
they're going to have to make that faster.
Well, also, if you're contracting the actor, like I'm pretty sure like you would. I don't know anything about actor contracts, but I feel like if they're going to keep him away for a season, like I don't think that's actually be feasible. They have two choices, right?
Didn't they do this with Bran?
Right, but I also think that's pretty hard. Like they can either adhere to the book and have him just be gone until he comes back and have the surprise factor, or they can be like, no, he's out there in the world and we can follow him until he gets back to Dragonstone, which if they like the actor enough and they want to keep him on the payroll and make sure, he's not doing other work, I could see them doing that as well, which is fine. Like I like the actor enough and I like what they're doing with the character that I would not mind that deviation of following him on his like incognito adventures out in the world.
Depending on what they give him to do and then how it goes with Sunfire and all that. Yeah.
They're giving him a pretty central role this season. I'd be surprised if they scrapped him for the next season. Although I guess they've kind of done that with other characters in the last season. It could be like he becomes a drug addict, but he's still trying to rule, and that he's kind of like a Mad King, 0.0.
I could see that becoming Alicent's kind of primary role as like, the king is out of commission but trying to be in commission and high on milk of the poppy and trying to be the king, and she's like trying to rein him in because she literally can't do anything else. But I also think it's harder. I mean, this is all speculation. I don't know. I feel like it's easier to be like, hey, child actor, Isaac Hempstead, right? Like, go away for next season, as opposed to like Tom Glencarney, who is like not super famous, but establishing himself as an actor, Of course, I'm secretly scared that they'll just kill him off. And his plotline will transfer over to Aemond, but that's not going to happen.
Better not happen.
I don't want it to happen.
If it happened. If we could go back to the little squire scene, y'all did notice that was Diana, right? I don't know if it was mentioned. That was the maid who got sent away by Alicent.
Yeah,
after she was raped.
That we thought maybe had been unalived.
Yeah, that is her for sure. I'm sorry, I was away from my computer for a second, so I didn't know if that we got mentioned.
Yeah, we talked. It came up in the chat. Like I totally missed it. So, like during the episode,
the one that they slap on the ass. That's the same character.
Yeah, that's her. That's supposed to be the maid that Alicent kicked out of her household, I guess.
Paid off. Yeah.
I
don't know. It's another thing where I'm like, we're making the world smaller again. I don't know if I like it or not.
I'm curious if it's the actual, like, she's credited as the same character or if it's just the actress.
I noticed it. Like, it wasn't really called out. I mean, that's kind of a good way. To me, that's a good way of bringing something back, like, without it being obtrusive if I didn't even notice it.
Yeah. I mean, back to Aegon for a second. I am very intrigued by what they will do with him because I feel like these past couple episodes we've kind of forgotten the Aegon that we were introduced to, and we're only remembering these last 3 episodes and the last episode of season 1, and so I'm curious what they will end up doing with him, because he is kind of a pretty shitty guy, and he's kind of showed that he might be a bit more up to the task than we expected with being king, but he is still a little shithead.
Yeah, I mean, he's pitiful, but he's also, you can tell, like, he doesn't quite want to be. Like, he was the only person listening to the small folk when they came to petition the king. Like, the only person who seemed to actually care and think that the crown should do right by them.
Take this man for his sheep.
Right.
I do think it was interesting that he kind of undercut Otto in that moment as well. When they were after the sheep guy, when Hugh comes up and Otto's obviously coming up again to kind of like forestall whatever this is, and he comes out with that, the small fucker, the key to our victory line. I was like, fine, I'll accept it, and moves on, essentially.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to, I believe his name is Ulf. We get him in the bar that Aegon ends up crashing at. We get the scene where I had to go look at a genealogy chart for the Targaryens to remember who's who. But apparently Ulf is Balon, who is the brother of Viserys, and
No. He's
it's funny
Viserys
because
and Daemon's dad. Is what
they
he is.
actually presaged this earlier in the episode when Rhaenys stalks out of the room and she's like, please remember that my grandfather was Jaehaerys. They called him the Conciliator. And then Ulf says almost the same thing. My grandfather was Jaehaerys the Conciliator.
Ulf the Awful.
Yeah, whose second son was Balon, whose son was Viserys. Who's
In the books, we don't get any parentage for Ulf, right?
No. There's nothing that's given to make him seem like he's nothing more than a dragon seed. That is to say, like,
Other
maybe
than
a third or fourth.
And look.
Yeah. Just the people that live on Dragonstone that are likely generations of dragon seeds, essentially.
I think Jaehaerys definitely dicked down when Dragonstone. Sorry, I think he's cheated on his wife. I stand by this.
I'm sure they've all cheated.
I've always liked the idea that Balon the Brave actually fathered Adam and Alan, actually, not Ulf and Hugh, and that's where they got the dragon riding. Well, at least Adam got the dragon riding from, and or he's what's her name's dad, the mouse lady. I forget her name. Matilda, something of Hull.
It's too many characters in my.
I was not prepared for unsimulated oral sex in this.
This. What? I saw someone that was like, "I'm quitting the show. Like, why is this on my screen?" And I was like, "Wait, was that? I missed it because, like, I guess I wasn't looking for that." But like, someone was. They would
established your relationship to that member.
I was like, "That's got to be a prosthetic or something, right?" Like,
it doesn't move.
You can't.
I was like, it is HBO. Like, they used to have porn on HBO. I'm like, maybe. Like,
no, but I mean, they can't film that. They're not allowed to.
That was a very, very realistic strap on.
And like, they've got to go. Like, I don't know. They got to be filming that for hours on end. Anyway, it's an interesting choice.
I'm not opposed to it. I was just shocked. I was like, wow, that's way more graphic than anything they've ever done.
I know, and it was like in the background.
And it's just Aegon looking around. Oh. Nope.
And then when Aemon stands up, turn around, I'm like, well, we're about to get it. And then like, blam, it's like, we get like, Aemon's like, yeah, I'm not putting clothes on, and just walks off. Which is hilarious because like I had just unearthed a tweet like the day before from Anna Kendrick from like 2015 where she was like, HBO, you cowards, like, all the boobs you're showing, like, show us this man's penis, and it was like one of the Darios, I don't remember which one. It's like, why are we not getting full frontal on the Dario? I'm like, well, you know what, they gave you Aemon.
Almost 10 years later.
I will say that I read that scene as being very important for two reasons. One, Aemon's expression to me 100% said, I am going to fucking kill you, which I think he will take advantage of next week. And personally, I think that's how Aegon is going to end up flambéed. But also, I feel like the walking away naked was kind of like oh, you've been in your armor all day. I don't need armor,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna let you guys, like, I'm not ashamed, like, I'm me, fuck you, like, I have no need for, fucking clothes, armor. I don't even have to need to talk back to you. Like, oh, he wants this one? Sure, he can have her. I'm out of here. He's like, that's his fucking mask right there.
Yeah, while also being, like, on the verge of crying.
I know, right?
Oh.
In his like, weird, gangly form.
Was he breastfeeding?
What? I have fan art for this. No.
Hold on a second.
Here's the thing.
I mean, Like he
Yeah.
It
does
looked
seem
like
really
he was.
And
He
I'm gonna
likes
be
that
honest.
lady.
Before Aegon said it, like I didn't put it together. Like, oh yeah, that's the sex worker that like Aegon took him to the first time. Like it's the same freaking one. I didn't realize. I know she's been in like a couple
There's
episodes.
nothing like your first love.
But I was like, it's like
Your first
twistedly sweet for someone like him, you know. And then he talking about, oh yes, Lucerys, I was angry that day. You know, you're like, oh yes, my brother Aegon, I got angry that day. Like, oh fuck, Aemon, like it's gonna happen.
He's seeking affection that he doesn't really get anywhere else. Like his mom, like Alison has a line, I forget if it was this episode or last episode, she's like, you know what Aemond is? And I was like, what do you think Aemond is? That's your son. Like, do you think he's like a monster? Then no wonder he's going to like the brothel lady to like stroke his hair and tell him he's a good boy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Have they kind of switched Aemond and Aegon this season? Like last season, you know, we didn't get a ton out of Aegon, but then we realized like he's, you know, fighting children like they're, you know, cockfights and like doing other horrible shit. And like this guy's a piece of shit. And Aemond actually, other than, you know, the incident with the eye and everything, it's like mostly like he's kind of cool. He's kind of a cool dude. He's maybe a little sensitive. He's nicer to his sister. And this season, I'm sort of like, you know, oh, he's gonna go psychopath. And I'm like, oh, actually, Aegon maybe has potential. Like I don't know. I didn't expect this season.
I think
I mean,
this was the scene where Aemond switched personally, not, and it to me it showed in how he treated Sylvie. Like it wasn't that he was, you know, cold to Aegon or whatever. That's totally legitimate. But like saying like one whore is just like another to this woman who, and you could see that she's hurt by that. You know, to me that was like, I feel like we are. God, I was just about to say like beginning the hardening Targaryen, but I'm not going to say that.
No, okay. Let me push back a little bit on that one.
Oh boy.
I was gonna say, I think to be fair, you can read that just the same as him trying to devalue her so that Aegon doesn't focus on her, because it seems that this is Aegon playing one of his like bullying more than anything to do this.
Oh, I mean, I think it was both for her and for him that he was like, oh, I don't actually care about this one because like that guards him, and it also like takes the heat off of her. Like, no, like don't focus on her. But I do think it was, of course, it was legitimately hurtful. You know, all the time that he paid her to cuddle. You know, like
It's very much still
she
the
cares
tease.
about him.
It's like the bullied kid whose only defense is just to clam up, be silent. Like that was kind of like he was a very like the child actor that they got for season 1. It's like you could believe the transition because even back then he was a little stoic and like tried not to like rise to the bait when they were teasing him with the pig. And it feels like the same thing. Like he's like Daemon in that he's like wildly insecure, but whereas Daemon like explodes, this guy just gets very cold and like retreats inward and waits for strategically bad moments to like take his rage out. Like you said, Michal, I think next episode he's gonna make another strategically unsound decision because somebody teased him.
I like the comparison to Daemon, where you're sort of put under the microscope and you can respond with aggression or just go cold and become stoic. That's interesting.
I do just want to note
maybe-
that on Game of Thrones we wouldn't have been asking about whether he was breastfeeding.
Why not?
Because
I mean, it would have been super obvious. I'm just drawing a comparison as to like the stuff is still in House of the Dragon, but it's at least a little bit more
There
like.
would be milk upon his lips.
Mm-mm. Oh, I think his lips would be quite busy.
The episode would be called Milk Upon His Lips.
Yeah, the Robin Aaron
Sam-
treatment.
Did Sam drink from Gilly's boobs in Game of Thrones like he did in the book? I don't remember. Was that a thing that happened once?
Right? I think they said.
I don't think that happened in the show.
It was very vivid in my mind palace.
With his fat pink mask.
Oh, bud.
Oh.
Oh, Sam.
R.I.P. Roy Dotrice.
Sad. I did just to, you know, I know we're giggling, but I did feel when Aemon stood up and like, you know, full frontal, it did kind of feel a bit statuesque. Like I couldn't like I don't want to. I don't think there's like a statue that I have in mind, but I thought that he looked very chiseled and very like I'm above all this. I'm, you know, I'm
He
better
was
than
very
all
rigid,
of you.
like a statue.
I'm a work of art.
Yeah, I just for a second there, I wasn't sure if he was going to turn all the way around or where they were going with that, and then he like fully walked off. But like I don't know, the hair, and he's just so bony. Like it's still like the Voldemort, like the dead Voldemort Horcrux thing, still kind of applies.
The baby one?
Like from when he's curled up, like that was like the first impression we had right last episode. But yeah, I mean props to him for like owning that shit. I mean he's like a badass warrior, so you know he can walk through the whorehouse, sure.
I did like that the guys that Aegon brought were like visibly uncomfortable with what was happening. Because yeah, it's like the guy who owns like the biggest nuke in the city. Like, let's maybe not get on his bad side.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were ever part of like the teasing when they were young, you know, like because that shit used to work, right? Like it would make him crazy, and now he's got Vagar, and you know he kind of this is his I don't know the his exposed scale kind of, right? Like visiting the sex workers and where he becomes vulnerable, and I mean, like, look, if Aegon had a mind to like take her to a torturer to get information out of her, like what would he find out, right?
Yeah, I think there's also something in like them being total chuckle fucks and idiots, but like I don't know, maybe seeing Aegon as the king and in that mode that they're familiar with was a little jarring. One can hope. I don't, maybe not.
It's like they're watching a family dispute, but the family is royal, so it's like, let's not involve ourselves in this. We can only end up in a very bad place by either laughing at one of them or the other, so let's just hang back.
It's like when you go over a friend's house and they all like the siblings or the sibling or the person you're hanging out with and their parents start fighting and you're just like, I'm here.
God,
yeah.
Hello.
Well,
you're just pretending you can't. You're suddenly deaf.
What happens if they laugh at Aemon and then Aegon and Aemon make up and Aemon's like, yeah, you need to get rid of your friends. They suck. And Aegon's like, well, yeah, they do kind of suck. I'm going to get rid of them. So it's like you are in the impossible position.
Well, they've also spent the whole episode stroking Aegon's ego, right? But at the same time, like power has very different meanings in different contexts in this world. And I think this was Aegon trying and assuming without even thinking about it, that he would assert power over Aemon in this context, and Aemon kind of wins the interaction, because he does also have the biggest dragon in the world. And I don't know, I can imagine that being, like, to an idiot, very disconcerting.
Yeah. I assume they also know that he killed Lucerys at this point. It's no secret.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, and I think that we're almost at, well, we already did a bunch of the end scenes, but I think our last scene here is the Christian Cole arguing with Gwaine about going to the inn, and Bela coming upon them on Moon Dancer, right?
On David Bowie.
They really colorized those dragons quite nicely. But anyways, she comes upon them, thinks this is a cool opportunity to maybe do something, maybe kind of showing how easy it can be for somebody on a dragon to take advantage of a situation, even though they weren't told to do anything in particular. Christian and Gwaine hide in the forest, crisis averted, and Christian Cole's like, yeah, no, we're not. No more fucking inns. We're sticking in the woods.
Can we just mention that Cole asks Alicent for her favor, and she gives him her handkerchief from her
tits.
From her bodice? From the lady's bodice?
She withdrew it from her bodice, yeah.
Where else does a lady keep her favor? Isn't it?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I don't know exactly. When you ask for the favor, it's just like, can I have a handkerchief that smells like you, kind of, right? It's being like, can I smell your hair, but like kind of creepy. So, but
what else would you give?
Right.
I don't know. He did it kind of on the sly, but like enough to get noticed. I don't know.
It was very, also it was like kind of a direct callback to the first time they met, right? When
yes,
Cole asked for.
Yeah.
I think he asked for Rhaenyra's favor at that point in the tourney.
Correct.
Yeah, and she gave it.
Yeah, but at that point they were like giving like these pretty, pre-made favors, and this is like, I don't know. This is kind of what I wanted from their relationship, like more of like a slow burn as opposed to just like all over each other, at any opportunity. Yeah. So I found this very compelling. I also could have been distracted and whatever by all the horses in full like bartery and armor, and I was just like, this is what I wanted from Game of Thrones, like just horses in armor.
They got all those horses to chill in one scene. It's brilliant. Mm-hmm. Game of Thrones could never do it. Yeah, I feel like Alicent just looked miserable when like he was like, "And may I ask a favor?" And she's just like, "Really?"
Yeah, I think.
I actually thought she was like hiding a smile. That was how I read that, but I did only watch it once. So.
I did read it as her being almost like, not like a you scamp, but like an I can't stay mad at you moment almost. I don't know. That scene felt like there was a lot of subtext going on. A lot of subtext. I think Gwaine might know. That's what I was getting.
Oh yeah, he definitely knows.
Yeah. I was getting like, you're fucking my sister, aren't you, you bastard? And
lowborn.
Well, that's what I was getting at first. Like then when he's like, "Oh, we're just gonna go to the inn," I'm like, "Oh, he's shitty." Like I was confused at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the Gwaine and crew were a bit more like, we're too cool to have do a camp, so we're gonna go to an inn where we'll get some babes in a bed, or
so the woods are for whores.
Yeah,
that was honestly more. I mean, he might know. I'm not sure, but like, it does seem like he just got there and is rather annoyed about the auto thing. So I feel like and also thinks Cole is like an up-jumped, nothing. So I think there's a lot of reasons for him to be, sus. But man, the way he kisses Allison's hand is just like sister. And I'm just like, I don't know. There was something. It's also like just the medieval stuff that I love.
Worse than a poor and common born. He's daughters. Great heavens.
Oh yeah, he's getting his dorn on me. Oh, like who's that? Who's the actor, by the way? I feel like
Freddie Fox.
Huh?
Can I say he's hot? He's serving. Like, actually. I like
His
this
name
guy.
is Freddie Fox, and he was just today announced to be playing Loki in Sandman Season 2.
Ooh,
It's good casting.
Mm-hmm.
That is good casting.
I think he's too pretty, but it makes sense for this character.
I feel like he's going to prove himself next episode,
Are we still talking about Gwaine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Casey, he's not for you. You don't have to care if he's pretty, okay?
Whatever.
He definitely shit his pants when Moondancer was
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like waiting for somebody to see, like show like that they were peeing themselves or whatever. Like, come on.
Oh, he was in The Gentleman, like the TV show. That's where I'm like, I was trying to figure out where I'd seen him, and he's on Slow Horses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I know I've seen him recently. So
Interesting.
Yeah. He's like the skeevy and Slow Horses. Isn't he like the skeevy like underling back at like MI5 or whatever? Whenever like they have to go back to like the big house, he's like, you can't get in here.
Exactly.
He's that guy.
Yeah, and I think we have a later scene where Bela is back at Dragonstone, and Rhaenyra finds out that Bela saw them, and she kind of just like, we had some contact, sorta, like kind of brushing it off. But she kind of feels like, I was excited about her this episode. I'm like, ooh, she has some of her dad in her.
Moondancer is a very cool king dragon, and also just seems like, this is why you got to send Rhaena away. Just it's just so cool, especially like when the dragon is that little and like can just dart around on screen. It's neat. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting her to like throw a little fire into the trees or something too, but I guess she thought better of it.
I think it was Rhaenyra's order more than anything. The whole stay high thing.
No, I know she wasn't supposed to, but like then she was already down. If she had caught them, what was she gonna do? Would she have burned the shit out of them, or would she have just like buzzed the tower like Maverick style? You know?
I feel like she would have unleashed the dragon on them.
That's what I would think. And I think like just a little dragon fire to kind of get things started would have been nice. Like, but I guess we still got kind of like the fear of dragons put into us.
Didn't she say something about I didn't engage as you ordered?
Yeah, because Rhaenyra says like, "How could you tell from so far?" And she was like, "Well, I might have been a little closer. Like I got closer, but like I didn't engage them. It was cool, but only because they got behind the trees."
I looked sick as fuck doing it.
Yes. All right, and then we're back to the last scene. Does anybody think I missed anything? I combined a couple of things.
I feel like people here said that they didn't like the last scene.
Yeah, I think.
What?
I think I heard that too.
Who would ever?
I hope that ends up in the recording.
We'll see.
It would make me happy if it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't think that any of us hated the scene. Like, if you took this scene and gave it to us, 5 years ago, and you showed us these actors in the scene, and like, I don't know, it just didn't. It just made a lot of things not make sense, and it didn't. Like I said, I feel like it was not narratively driven.
I loved it.
I'm fine with the scene as a concept. The conversation between the two of them, the mistaking of the prophecy for a backing of Aegon for king. I don't actually hate that part. It's just Rhaenyra sneaking in the city is patently stupid. Treating with Alicent at this point feels out of character for solely the Luke and Jaehaerys reasons. Like the fact that Alicent doesn't react to this, even with the revelation, is upsetting to me because it's like, this is your grandson. I'm sorry. I don't think she would not stop herself from calling the guards and having Rhaenyra arrested. It's silly to me. Yeah, this should have happened after King fell. Is my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, but I also don't know what else they were going to do. But I think they had a perfect and I'm sure they thought about all of this in the writers' room, and we're just here like Monday morning quarterbacking the shit out of it. But I'm sure they had the opportunity when she says, "Hey, well, what could you do for me? Could you get a message? Oh, there's no way we could get a message to her secretly, or any, but oh, maybe there's a way I could sneak you in, sort of thing." They could have just said, "Oh, well, you know what? There is an opportunity where maybe, like, what if you could have snuck a messenger into her, say, hey, I'll meet you, down in the bay or something. She's got the dragon right there. Then Alicent comes, like they meet each other halfway, like something like that, as contrived as it may have been, like would maybe feel more like, okay, they're both being clandestine. You don't have to hand wave and say, oh, that's impossible. Like this feels like it should have been impossible, but I can accept it. But I feel like Rhaenyra maybe like having her dragon in a way to get away would make me feel a little better about this scene.
I think it's really unlikely that Alicent would have gone anywhere at Rhaenyra's request. It's just too...
I know, but it's unlikely that Rhaenyra gets in there and doesn't get caught and does. I mean, it's all unlikely. So, like, I don't know.
See, I don't mind, like, to me, actually taking advantage of the anonymity of King's Landing, I like that, because it's true.
Yeah, I totally agree. I am not bothered by her getting through King's Landing, given all the rest of the scenes that we have this in, and also just, I think it also leads... you could have a point later on where they meet, and I think that we will, given this, have other points where they might see each other. I think that, those later scenes will be more impactful with this scene. She's already had that discussion, and Rhaenyra, I would feel would be a bit more like, I'm not ending this war this way anymore, you're too late, type conversation.
This might sound a little extreme, but one could argue that this action disqualifies her as a leader. Like putting herself, she's supposed to be the head of state, not telling anyone, not taking any precautions. She rides a dragon, which, never comes up. It's not useful anyway, but, we don't know that. Like she's a key player and she is the head. like putting herself at such a risk that could compromise everything. Because I know someone in the chat said, well, if Allison should just be seizing her and they kill her and the war's over. Well, obviously the war wouldn't be over, but it would open up the door for a lot of people who swore to Rhaenyra to go, well, I guess I didn't really swear to her son. And, there are questions about the son's parentage. And, like, it would allow, like, an honorable back out for some people who are sticking to their honor. And there's not that many of them, right?
There's also the case of, like, is Jace going to bend the knee when his mother is?
Right. So,
held
like,
hostage?
the risk is so high and it feels so irresponsible for her to do this. I mean, like, I would have liked for there to have been some sort of more of a position of power on her end doing this, like, I don't know, a safety net. Like, I don't know how to put it, but it just felt like this is just not. It's like you're playing chess and you move your king all the way to the other side for no reason. And you're like, what are you doing?
I feel more like, given Daemon, I don't think that she's being reckless. And given given Aemond, honestly, like, you got these two guys being reckless, and she's not alone. She's with some guy reading a book. But she isn't, she knows what she's doing. She has lived in King's Landing her whole life. She trusts her people. She knows Alicent won't kill her, especially in the Sept. And I'm not mad at it.
I get all that, but it's like when and we've seen this in stories, countless stories, and you see it like the president, for instance, if there's a shootout, like, isn't going to be like, give me a gun, I'm getting out there. It's like, no, you're the last person that gets out there. Like,
but don't they want to?
I mean, Aegon does that in this episode, and Daemon walks into Harrenhal by himself.
But Daemon is not the ruler.
Like,
He's the ruler.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but Daemon.
No one gives a shit what the vice president does.
Daemon does not think he is the vice president.
Daemon wants to. I understand that, and his position is a little different. But from, like, the cause of the war, to me, I'm just like, it's just too irresponsible. I mean, because they tell Aegon, like, yeah, you really can't go out there, man. Like, someone else needs to do that. And now he can be stupid and override that, but we look at it as stupid and reckless, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think going SEAL Team Westeros, strolling around the what do you call it, the outskirts of Harrenhal in the towers, where at any point he could come upon, like, 6 guards and they just overpower him and take him captive, and then he's forced to be sent to the Greens or killed or whatever happens to him because of that, or they let him go and they're like, oh, we're going to bend the knee to Rhaenyra because Sir Simon Strong does like, or whatever it is. But he's putting himself at an immense risk. He was putting himself at an immense risk when he took himself away from his dragon to go to King's Landing to do the blood and cheese thing. I thought that was stupid as well.
We didn't talk about it, though.
I was drunk that night. I was very drunk. But yeah, listen, I was so drunk that night.
Really? I couldn't tell at all.
No way. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Was it more the blood or the cheese that night for you?
Yeah,
no. But it's like, there's a reason Luke gets sent to Storm's End, the more dangerous flight.
100% of people are more concerned with their children's safety than their own.
No, but I'm saying, like,
maybe Alton Hightower.
So he gets sent north, which is a safer flight.
It isn't the safer flight, though. It was thought that the Baratheon would be the safer flight because they're kin, right? That they have kin aligned to him. So
it's also the shorter flight.
It's also the shorter flight. It's also the flight. The north is not a guarantee.
I don't know.
It's explicit in the book that Jace is sent on the more dangerous path because he's older.
They thought it was. I don't know. To me, like, I don't know. I guess, and what we see, to me, it just seems like fly north. Like, he just hit autopilot and took a nap. I
do agree that I think it is reckless on Rhaenyra's part. Yes, like, Daemon is also sneaking around in the city. Daemon also can, I think, defend himself a little better than Rhaenyra can. Like, it's not smart when Daemon does it either, but I think, like, you don't want to risk, like, the queen. Like, she's the queen. She shouldn't be like, endangering herself, like, needlessly. Get it? Like, the scene, there were other things that bothered me about the scene. The setup was kind of like it feels like a writer workaround where they're like, fuck, we got to get these two characters to talk in the same place. How can we do how can we do this, like, logically? And it's like, well, there's not really a logical for them to be in the same room. So, well, Daemon did it, Rhaenyra can do it.
I feel like I'm feeling the writer's strike with the past 2 episodes a little bit with the cohesion.
And the reduced episode order.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really liked the second episode, and I didn't feel like there was a lack
The
of.
second episode was the highest rated for our lemon cakes. It got I think it was 60%.
I'm not saying that it was a bad episode. It just feels like with the flow. It seems like a lot of these scenes are a bit more like.
That's fair.
They're not like moving together at the same speed. You could put parts of both of these episodes in different spots, and it would still make a good show. You know,
there are mechanical problems with both of these episodes.
I can see what you mean there. This is a small aside because the cinematography would been like considerably better for y'all.
Yes,
in this show,
it's beautiful.
I feel like
good.
There was a shot that this is going back to episode 2, but the shot of Helena in the procession, I was like, is Denis Villeneuve like directing this right now? What is going on? This is gorgeous.
I felt similarly with this episode with seeing Cole and his army go out of King's Landing. I was like, ooh, it almost looks like the map. That's beautiful.
There's been a couple of scenes where I'm just like, what is going on? This is stunning. This is gorgeous.
Cameras are getting better, man.
Yeah. Sorry, that's aside, but
I think this is a good moment to wrap this up.
Because it was all done on an iPhone.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Actually, it's artificial intelligence.
True. All right, so that's it for us for now. We'll be back for next week's episode. That is apparently going to be amazing, and I'm going to be very disappointed if it's not. So this has been DragonCast. Thank you, everybody. You can find us on YouTube's, probably the social medias, though I don't know if we're posting all that much. And, of course, on Discord, where we're all chatting. So, anybody is welcome. Feel free to chat with us about how you feel about the show or other things, because we talk about lots of other things.
Yeah, and feel free to share your lemon cakes on the YouTube. There's like a thing.
Xander! Jesus Christ.
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
bye.
Xander, you can't just show up like that when we're ending the episode.
Why not? Rhaenyra did it.
True. That's a true thing right there.
Xander.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
Xander, it's been a while.
It has been a while. How's everybody?
Good.
Hey, can we do like a clean goodbye and stuff so it'll be easier for Casey to edit, and then we'll chat?
Nope.
Good call.
I don't mind just cutting it. It's fine. Xander, did you want to join the dark side and give your 11 cakes that you definitely didn't give in Blackfire Cat?
Well, I did give this episode a 5 out of 5 poison peas.
Ooh.
Yeah, the Blackfire chat just aired. You didn't know that, Casey?
No.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, we show up to the battle. We're not
Well,
to it in the morning.
That's something I forgot to say. I forgot to say that Damon's dream wasn't magical. He was just hungry.
He ate a bad shroom because they're growing all over that place. Oh, man.
This is what happens when I'm not on Twitter. I have to save all my material for Vok.
Alright, well, I just came on, to see what the lesser cast is doing, how everybody's feeling. But have fun editing all this out, Casey.
You're welcome. It might not be edited out.
Yeah, it's already past the end, Xander. It's already past the end.
Good.
We don't need to edit you.
Blackfires!
You have no claim.
Oh, I do have. Dude, Damon got this sword. I don't understand. There's no argument.
Who says that Damon would be a Blackfire?
Go drink some water.
Damon Blackfire.
Oh.
Not this Damon.
Mother, you know what?
The fire.
I am only focused on this part of the genealogy, and that is enough.
Look, we have decided to create a fake rivalry to create an audience. And instead of going greens and blacks, we brought in black fires. So just roll with it.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
You don't understand. They were king who bore the sword truthers. So they just believe in whoever has the sword. It should be king.
Hey,
Blackfire will rise again.
He had a flat stomach and a straight back, and he was given the sword, dude.
None of y'all know where Dark Sister is, but we do.
Listen, if you've ever read any Richmond's speech in a Southern accent, it does in fact make sense. It makes too much sense. Just read Randall Tarley like a Southerner, and it makes like an exorbitant amount of sense. And you'll be like, oh yeah, all Richmond are Southerners. This is meant as a good thing, by the way. I push this as it's a better reading of the book. Totally.
The house words are "get her done."
Get her done.
As the Alabama in the chat, I'm just gonna refrain from saying anything.
That sounded way too Southern, Katie.
Roll Tide.
Say in
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
I
I
know.
am simply wilting.
Oh my gosh,
Gotta
there
go
was some
out.
great Alabama joke to do with this show, and I've lost it now.
Yeah, we got a lot of
Yeah,
them.
it's Targaryens.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Adam. There's like it's like a landmine. You just like fall onto them. There's 1,000
Like,
everywhere.
there's so many that you
Leia.
can't make any of them.
An alley oop, if you will. Yeah.
Whoa, that was weird. Did that really happen? That's how I feel right now.
My God. During that whole time,
Because it
Adam was
wasn't
talking, I'm
recorded.
like, how do I make Craig go on? How do I make Craig go on?
Don't put any of that in. Just put the reaction in.
Bro, were you trying to Craig me? Are you recording this? I can't be recorded. I'm a sovereign citizen.
So true. So true.
Hashtag Craig. That's a joke that only like 90-year-old podcast listeners will get.
He's not even home yet.
Aw.
He will be.
Really
soon.
is a busy season.
You said only 90 podcast listeners, so all of our listeners will get it?
No, I said 90-year-old.
Oh, 90.
Saying, like, only if you like listened to the podcast in like 2014 or something.
Yeah, who is this Greg person? Well, there was an
Hey,
ancient
some of us
fellow.
did listen to the podcast in 2014. Okay.
Oh, okay.
He's
Cool.
a owner of books that puts chains on the books at his bookstore. We'll never understand why.
I need the door creak sound now. It's just running through my head continuously.
Is Allison's brother's name Dwayne?
Gwaine. GW.
Gawain, Gawain.
Wayne.
Gwaine Hightower.
Gwaine!
Bing, have you been playing Shadow of the Erd Tree?
Me? No, I don't play any of the from South games.
Fair enough.
Ugh.
I was just curious because I've had an influx of people complaining about similar names, and it's just like, well, George wrote the lore, so of course.
I mean, I generally know what it's about, but yeah, not surprised.
Yeah.
I hear they're making an Elden Ring movie or TV show or something.
George, please.
That would be the most confusing
Like,
thing ever.
George.
movies on Facebook, and I feel like I don't know what's coming out anymore.
I don't know how people can process it. Like, I don't know that much about Elden Ring, but the plot doesn't make sense from what I know.
For a video game, it doesn't make sense at all.
Well, look, when they approached me about writing for Elden Ring, I thought, yeah, I could spend a little time on that. So I have about 3,000 pages for the world book, and I figured maybe we could make a movie.
I could slam that dork Tolkien into the ground.
Sorry, why are there so many little scenes in this episode?
It was a very long episode. It felt longer than last week to me.
I think it was.
Yeah.
No, I think
It
it was a minute
wasn't.
shorter.
It was a minute shorter,
It
yeah.
was-
Or
yeah, it
like
was
a minute and a half
hour and 8
shorter.
minutes.
And it did feel longer because there was a, massive scene that was dog shit right before, or at the end of it. I have a vehement hatred for that scene. I'm sorry.
We'll talk about that later. Greg's home.
Oh, Greg?
There's your door sound, Ben.
Yeah, that is the door sound. That is the creeping door.
That is the door. Yeah.
Oh, they got rid of a permit and
Mhm.
Elmo.
Fucking bullshit.
Really? Natalia kids aren't there?
They're combining them all into Oscar.
I hate fucking everything.
No, I love it. It's the best.
I think.
This is the worst change.
Oh, wait, how do we know this?
They casted them in the Oscar family.
Brilliant.
Oh,
Absolutely brilliant. I'm
I was
sorry.
looking up Grover.
oh, Kermit the Tully here. This is unacceptable.